So whether in the physical therapy, strength and conditioning, or personal training world, I would bet that every single day you're prescribing an abdominal exercise. And here's the thing. When it comes to abdominal exercises, there's one main principle or secret that really needs to be followed and respected. But what usually happens is that this one principle is usually the only thing that's overlooked and neglected. So in this video, I want to discuss what that one principle is so that we can start to level up our abdominal coaching, but continue to use the abs for what they can really be of purpose and of value for our patients and clients, and that is changing position. The abdominals really help our patients learn new positions, learn new patterns to go after the source, like I'm always talking about in all the videos. And using this one principle will really help you do that. So I already alluded to it, but the main secret and main principle that I am referencing is position. When we perform or coach abdominal exercises, we really need to ensure that our patients or clients are in an ideal position. Most of the times, we're going into these ab exercises and the patient or client in front of you is not in a good pattern or position. What this does is it makes it really hard to actually capture the abs and actually contract the abs to get the outcomes that we're looking for. So what I'm talking about when I'm referencing position are two main things. The first is the rib cage, the second is the pelvis. Now, to simplify it, what we're trying to do is get the rib cage to stack on top of the pelvis. We could refer to this as being in more of a neutral state, but what it's going to do is it's going to restore the normal length and tension on the abs. So instead of being in an extended rib flared position in an anterior pelvic tilt, where the abs are really long, elongated, eccentric, aka weak, we are looking at bringing that rib cage back down so that we can start to stack these over one another, so then we can start to build strength in an optimal position. So let's start at the top with the ribs. The main dysfunction that we're trying to fight is a lot of our patients and clients kind of live in that extension. So the ribs are going to be flared upwards. Now, our strategy and our goal is to get the ribs to come down and in. How do we do that? We do that with exhalation, but specifically, we can use a balloon. Now, a balloon is just like a dumbbell for your abs. It's going to provide your patient or client with a little bit more resistance so that they can fire the abs to get the ribs to come back down. Now, unfortunately, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, I want you to take an exhale and then inhale and repeat. There's a little bit of a strategy behind it, because what happens when you go to coach this, a lot of patients and clients can blow up a balloon and their ribs will come down and in, just like we want. But then when they go to inhale, they fall back into extension. And all they're doing is going down and back into extension. The problem with this is that we're not creating any sort of change. What we need to teach our patient and client to do is to be able to exhale, get the ribs to come down and in, and then maintain that position. And then repeat it and go down and in even further. How do we do this? We tell them, take an inhale through your nose. As you exhale, I want you to feel your abs. Then they go to inhale. On the inhale, I need you to maintain that same feeling that you felt. And then as we go into our next exhale, I want you to increase your abs. So you must keep exhaling until you feel more abdominal contraction. And then again, hold that feeling. Take an inhale. So what happens is, as you're going through this, if you took 4 breaths, every breath, the ribs are coming lower and lower. So by the 4th breath, the rib cage must be at its lowest point. If it's not, then your patient or client is going back into extension and we're not creating any change. So again, Rib cage, we're looking to deploy breathing, specifically exhalation, to get the ribs down and in, and really learn how to concentrically hold that position, but then build the eccentric strength, right? The eccentric strength is holding on to these obliques and abs as we inhale without losing the position. So now we can make our way down to the pelvis. Usually the coupled paired dysfunction with a flared rib cage is an anterior pelvic tilt, right? These are both extension mechanism, one's at the ribs and one's at the pelvis. So the main goal that we're looking to achieve is to get in more of a posterior pelvic tilt and move in that posterior direction. And we want to do that by starting to engage hamstrings. Now, if you're in the physical therapy world or the strength and conditioning world, you know that coaching a posterior pelvic tilt can sometimes be challenging. It's a foreign motion to patients and clients, so it usually takes a little bit of work to get them to understand what you're talking about, but then actually execute it in the right fashion. So when coaching a posterior pelvic tilt, what I like to do is I like to reference a belt buckle. So I'll ask the patient, hey, I want you to imagine that you are wearing a big belt, and on that big belt is an even bigger belt buckle. Now, as you lay there, I want you to move your belt buckle with just your pelvis, or sometimes I'll reference hips, just because it's a little bit more known to them. I want you to move your belt buckle towards your feet. Now, what is this doing? This is moving them in an anterior pelvic tilt. Well, wait, I thought we were trying to work on posterior pelvic tilt. Well, we are, but I find that the anterior is their familiar and comfortable zone. Move them in their comfort zone first, then ask them to do the exact opposite. I've found that if you just try to go belt buckle to the chin, and when that's the harder motion to do, that it just is a lot more complicated. Move them in the opposite direction, then you can cue them with the belt buckle towards the chin, or just say, now go in the opposite motion. Usually this is a nice way for them to really understand and dissociate an anterior pelvic tilt versus a posterior pelvic tilt. So we talked about the rib cage dysfunction and goal, and then we talked about the pelvis dysfunction and goal. Now let's look at how we sync them up, because at the end of the day, we're looking to stack them. Use the isolation pieces that we just previously talked about to then get to this point to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So all we're going to do is go into a 90-90 position and work on breathing, engaging the hamstrings, and maintaining a good position. So what you're going to do is grab a bench, some sort of 90-degree object where you can throw your feet up on and have your feet on the wall. So as you go down, you have to get pretty close to the wall, and you're going to throw your feet up. You can put a ball between the knees if you'd like. And all we're going to work on is exactly what we just did in isolation, but now together. So we need the ribs to come down. You can do this with a balloon. All we're going to first cue is to make sure we feel our whole foot on the wall, get a little bit more centered through the heel and midfoot. You're going to gently dig down as if you're trying to get your feet to your butt. We're going to go into that posterior pelvic tilt. And as you see, the knees should rise. We're not doing a bridge where everything comes up. We are essentially going into that posterior pelvic tilt, our low back still on the ground. I feel the hamstrings because I'm pushing into the wall and pulling down simultaneously. And then all we're going to do here, you'll have a balloon or without a balloon, we're just going to go through 4 breaths. We're taking an inhale through our nose, and the exhale gets the rib cage to go down, maintain that position, and then we would repeat for 3 more. Inhale, rib cage did not come back up, and then we exhale, the ribs go down lower. So we follow the same steps that we just previously talked about. Now we're just getting everything and putting it together. So what's the big picture here? Well, the next time you are going to coach an abdominal exercise, make sure you have the prerequisites in place. The prerequisites are a rib cage and a pelvis that are stacked over one another. To get the rib cage in a good position, we are really going to ensure that our patients and clients can take a nice exhale to get the ribs down and in. For the pelvis, we're going to make sure they understand the difference between an anterior and a posterior pelvic tilt. Going towards that posterior pelvic tilt, that's when they're going to be in a little bit of a more stacked position. Now, this is not for everyone. These strategies and tactics are for those that have more of that anterior pelvic tilt and arched back. I didn't really talk about the other archetypes as it relates to the human body because they usually have a different set of things that they need to work on and don't struggle with some of these things that we talked about in this video. But if you want to learn more about those types of people for our other archetypes, I would invite you and encourage you to check out the Online Performance Redefined program. This is our completely self-paced program where we go through really how to get intentional with your exercise, from everything from coaching to assessing to prescribing, and in a way that takes away the guesswork so that you can really get the results that you're looking for and that your patients or clients deserve. So I will leave that linked below. Let me know if you have any questions about it. But thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.